The sun beat down on the fertile plains of British-controlled Bengal. Under its glare, farmers moved through fields of nodding white poppies, their fingers stained black. With small, curved knives, they scored the ripe seed pods. From each cut, a milky latex wept, darkening in the air to a sticky brown resin. This was raw opium, the first harvest of a global poison. Workers in Calcutta scooped the gummy paste into shallow pans to dry. The air in the godowns thickened with a sweet, earthy scent. Once hardened, the dark cakes were packed tightly into wooden chests, each stamped with the mark of the British East India Company. These chests were loaded onto waiting ships, their holds destined for a single, forbidden market across the sea, the vast, closed empire of Qing China. The trade was a calculated violation. China's emperors had long banned the foreign narcotic, but British merchants saw a fortune in addiction. Each chest represented pure profit, a commodity to be smuggled past imperial edicts. As the ships sailed east from the Hooghly River, they carried not just a drug, but the seeds of a coming conflict, all cultivated from the sap of a delicate flower. From the holds of British East India Company ships in Macau's harbour, the opium chests began their clandestine journey inland. Portuguese authorities turned a blind eye as Chinese merchants, their faces shadowed by wide-brimmed hats, supervised the transfer. The chests, heavy with potential profit and poison, were loaded onto smaller, swifter vessels waiting in the moonlit coves, their decks already crowded with armed guards. These were the fast crabs and centipedes, long, narrow boats powered by dozens of oarsmen. They sliced through the dark waters of the Pearl River Delta, moving with a predatory silence. Their crews navigated a maze of tributaries and canals, avoiding the main channels where the imperial customs junks, slower and more cumbersome, patrolled for contraband they rarely intercepted. The system was a well-oiled machine of evasion. Lookouts posted on riverbanks signalled with lanterns, guiding the smugglers past checkpoints. By dawn, the chests would be dispersed into a network of warehouses upriver, ready to feed the growing demand in Canton. This riverine smuggling operation, financed by foreign traders and executed by local syndicates, systematically bypassed the Qing Emperor's laws and tariffs. The silver followed the opium upstream. In the counting houses behind Canton's foreign factories, merchants weighed gleaming syces, boat-shaped ingots of pure silver, stacking them into pyramids that shimmered in the lamplight. Each bar represented chests of the drug already smuggled inland, a direct transfer of wealth from the Qing Empire's veins into foreign coffers. The physical weight of the metal leaving China was palpable, a silent hemorrhage of the dynasty's lifeblood. Out in the provinces, the economic poison took hold. Local magistrates watched tax revenues wither as peasants pawned tools and land to feed their new addiction. The imperial treasury in Beijing, which once hummed with the flow of silver taels, now echoed. Coffers meant for grain stores, canal repairs, and soldiers' pay grew disturbingly light. The empire was financing its own weakening, paying silver for paralysis in a trade that ran only one way. By the late 1820s, the drain triggered a financial crisis. The value of copper coinage, used by everyday people, plummeted against silver, crushing the poor. Officials sent frantic memorials to the Daoguang Emperor, their ink describing a kingdom being hollowed out. The very stability of the Qing state, which had long measured its health in silver, was now threatened not by rebellion or invasion, but by the relentless arithmetic of the opium trade. The silver crisis had become intolerable. In the spring of 1839, the Daoguang Emperor dispatched his most incorruptible official, Commissioner Lin Zexu, to the southern port of Canton with absolute authority. Lin arrived not with compromise, but with an imperial edict demanding the surrender of every chest of foreign opium. His soldiers sealed off the foreign factories, cutting off food and water while his proclamations condemned the trade as a moral poison. Under the mounting pressure, the foreign merchants reluctantly handed over their stocks. At Human, a beach on the Pearl River Delta, Lin's command transformed the shoreline. Thousands of laborers and soldiers dug 3 massive trenches, each larger than a city block, their shovels biting into the sand under the subtropical sun. They lined these pits with stone, creating vast temporary basins ready to receive the empire's confiscated plague. Then the destruction began. Teams heaved over 20,000 wooden chests into the trenches, splitting them open to reveal the dark, sticky cakes of raw opium. Workers emptied sacks of salt and quicklime into the seawater, flooding the pits. The chemical reaction generated fierce heat, boiling and dissolving the narcotic into a foul black slurry. For 23 days, soldiers stirred the toxic mixture before channeling it all out into the sea, a monumental act of purification that would ripple across the oceans. News of the opium's destruction reached London, igniting outrage among merchants and politicians alike. They framed Lin Zexu's act not as a sovereign crackdown, but as the wanton theft of British property. By late 1839, Parliament authorised a naval expedition, a fleet of vengeance sailing east with orders to secure reparations and compel the Qing to open their ports for good. The clash was a spectacle of technological shock. The British squadron, led by the revolutionary iron-hulled paddle steamer HMS Nemesis, glided effortlessly against wind and current. Its pivot-mounted cannons swiveled with lethal precision, unleashing broadsides of shot and shell that splintered the heavy timbers of the Qing's majestic but cumbersome wooden war junks. One by one, the imperial vessels were reduced to burning hulks, their sails ablaze and crews scrambling in the churned, smoky water. The Nemesis, virtually impervious to return fire, steamed through the wreckage, its smokestack belching black coal clouds. A stark mechanical symbol of an industrial power that China's ancient navy could not hope to match. The thunder of British guns finally fell silent. On the 29th of August, 1842, aboard the steam frigate HMS Cornwallis anchored in the Yangtze River, the air hung thick with the smell of ink and humiliation. Qing imperial commissioners, their silk robes a stark contrast to the ship's iron bulkheads, dipped their brushes. They signed the Treaty of Nanking, a document that formalized their military defeat. The treaty's first article severed a piece of the empire itself. With a few strokes, Hong Kong Island was ceded in perpetuity to the British Crown, transforming from a sparsely populated fishing outpost into a strategic colonial foothold. The ink on that clause was not just a territorial transfer. It was the physical anchor for a new, imposed order in East Asian waters. Further clauses pried open the mainland. 5 key ports, Canton, Amoy, Foochow, Ningpo, and the small fishing town of Shanghai, were forced open to British trade and residence. Foreign merchants, once confined to a narrow strip in Canton, could now live and operate under their own laws in these enclaves, establishing the treaty port system that would dominate China's coastal economy for a century. The ink on the Treaty of Nanking had barely dried when its consequences took root in the muddy banks of the Huangpu River. In Shanghai's new international settlement, a foreign enclave carved from the treaty's terms, the first wooden shacks appeared along the wharves. Their windows, shaded by bamboo blinds, leaked a thick, cloying perfume that clung to the humid air, the unmistakable scent of opium vaporizing over lamps. Inside these dens, men from all strata of a fractured society reclined on wooden platforms. Their eyes, glazed and distant, followed the ritual. A pea-sized ball of dark paste, roasted over a flame until it bubbled, then skillfully rolled and pressed into the tiny bowl of a long bamboo pipe. A deep, rasping inhalation pulled the smoke into lungs, delivering its payload of morphine and codeine to the brain. The sweet haze was a symptom of a deeper paralysis. Silver continued to hemorrhage from the countryside to pay for the drug, while the Qing government's decrees against opium use echoed emptily outside the settlement's boundaries. Here, foreign consuls and merchants operated under their own laws, their authority enforced by Marines. The dens were not just houses of addiction, they were outposts where imperial sovereignty dissolved as completely as opium in a flame. But the concessions extracted at Nanking only whetted the appetite for more. In the autumn of 1856, British and French diplomats, citing a minor diplomatic incident involving a Chinese-flagged ship, the Arrow, presented new, impossible demands to the Qing court. When Beijing refused, the Allied fleets returned, their guns trained once more on the Chinese coast, initiating the Second Opium War. 2 years later, in the spring of 1858, the thunder of modern naval artillery shattered the morning calm at the mouth of the High River. The massive Dagu forts, formidable barriers of packed earth and brick that guarded the sea approach to Tianjin and Beijing, were systematically pulverized. Shells from British gunboats tore through the walls, collapsing parapets and silencing the fort's own older cannons in clouds of dust and debris. With the coastal defences neutralised, a joint expeditionary force of British and French soldiers landed. They marched inland, following the river towards the imperial capital itself. The road to Beijing, the very heart of the Qing dynasty, now lay open, with nothing but a demoralised and retreating imperial army between the foreign troops and the Forbidden City. After capturing the Dagu forts, the Allied British and French Expeditionary Force marched north toward Beijing. Their objective was not the Forbidden City itself, but the Emperor's Summer Palace, the Yuan, a sprawling complex of gardens, pavilions, and European-style palaces built by Jesuit architects. In October of 1860, they reached its gates, encountering not soldiers, but a silent, opulent world of jade, silk, and porcelain. For days, the troops embarked on a methodical, frenzied looting. Soldiers stuffed their knapsacks with gold Buddhas, rolled up ancient silk scrolls, and shattered cabinets to pocket intricate snuff bottles. Officers selected finer treasures, cloisonné vases, mechanical clocks, and libraries of handwritten manuscripts. The grounds, once a private imperial retreat, echoed with the sounds of splintering wood and gleeful shouts as a centuries-old collection was systematically dismantled. Then, on orders from the British High Command, they set it all ablaze. Flames consumed wooden pavilions and marble halls alike, the fire so intense it melted stone and fused ceramics into grotesque new forms. The pall of smoke over Beijing was a visible, undeniable message of total dominance. This calculated destruction forced the Qing court to finally ratify the Treaty of Tianjin, a document that legalized opium, opened more ports, and demanded a colossal indemnity, cementing foreign control. The ink dried on the treaties, transforming what had been a criminal enterprise into a state-sanctioned industry. Foreign merchants no longer needed to lurk in the shadows of Canton's backwaters. They now operated openly from the treaty ports, their warehouses stacked high with chests bearing the official stamps of the British Crown. The poison had won its legal passport. But the most profound change took root far inland in the terraced hills of Sichuan. Chinese farmers, seeing a more reliable cash crop than rice, began slashing the green bulbs of their own poppies. The milky sap they collected was processed in local refineries, its smoke now curling from village huts as well as Shanghai dens. The empire was now harvesting its own demise. This domestic cultivation completed the cycle of devastation. Silver continued to hemorrhage from the economy, but now it flowed between Chinese provinces, enriching local warlords and corrupt officials. The drug had evolved from a foreign weapon of war into a deeply embedded toxin of the state, a bitter symbol of a century defined by external humiliation and accelerating internal rot.